I'm Ben Broghammer, and you're listening to The Ben Broghammer Show. Well, welcome back to the show. Before we get into today's topic, I want to first start off by thanking everyone who has listened and shared this podcast. You shared it with your friends and your family, and the reach of this message is already starting to grow. And that's because of you. So thank you. On my inaugural episode on Saturday, I talked about what this show is about. Community. Our community, your community. And it's about being rooted in the facts. Unfiltered, unaltered, and unintimidated. The goal of the show is to tell it how it is. I think us as taxpayers and as citizens, we deserve to hear it how it is. What's happening right in front of us. And it's about adding context and explanation to the issues and the topics, and allowing you as the listener to form your own opinions. A lot of what will be discussed on this program is St. Louis local, and it's St. Louis impact. But there are themes found here, which we'll talk about today, that translate across the country, to every pocket, every corner, every town, and every city. So with that, let's get into it. The topic today is comprehensive plans. Comprehensive plans specifically for municipalities. They set the stage for local government, towns, villages, cities. If anything, they speak to the culture of these communities and where those leading them want to go. We're going to keep this episode hyper-local, focusing on Webster Groves, Missouri. Now, this is a special episode, not just because of the topic, but because Webster Groves is my home. And there's something happening here in Webster Groves local government that is going to have a massive impact, not just for today, not just for tomorrow or this generation, but arguably generations to follow. The Webster Groves Comprehensive Plan 2025 is complete, and it actually was adopted on Tuesday night at a city council meeting. And the previous plan dated back to 1978. And so there was a big goal of the city and city leaders to create a new, modern, updated plan. And I'm going to quote the city's website that describes what this plan is all about. Quote, "This updated plan provides a strategic framework for land use, housing, mobility for people, bikes and vehicles, parks, and public services. It helps guide future decisions with clarity and community input, ensuring that growth happens with intention, resilience, and balance. This plan is a visionary roadmap designed to guide the community's physical, economic, and social landscape over the next 10 to 20 years." End quote. So to set the stage, what is Webster Groves? Well, Webster Groves is a suburb in St. Louis County, about 5.9 square miles, population of just under 24,000 residents. And these are statistics pulled directly from the comprehensive plan. Highly educated with a BA or higher, representing 71% of the population. Median household income, $116,604. And median home value, just over $400,000. When you look at how much residents spend on their mortgage related to their income, it's 22%. So a lot of engagement allegedly went into the creation of this report, a lot of community input, as they said in the plan. So what did that look like? Well, this is how the outreach process is described, and then we're going to get into the numbers. Quote, "The inclusive engagement efforts ranging from community ambassador involvement, listening sessions, community-wide events, and digital outreach provided a multitude of perspectives that allowed the planning team to deeply understand the soul of Webster Groves. This robust community engagement laid the foundation for ensuring that the comprehensive plan reflects the community's collective vision and addresses the unique challenges and opportunities within Webster Groves." End quote. So by the numbers, there's 4 statistics as to what all of that looked like. They had 2 open houses with 80 community members. And if you remember the fact I just threw out about the size of the town, 24,000 residents, that's 0.3% of the population. 2 online surveys with 530 participants. It's 2.23% of the population represented. A project brand website that saw 2,600 unique visits. Now, those aren't confirmed to be only residents, but if they were all residents and only residents, that would be 10.9% of the population. And they held listening sessions with 90 stakeholders, which puts it at a ratio of 1 stakeholder for every 264 residents. Now, I read the whole report a couple times, actually, because I was looking for one piece I wasn't seeing the first time I read it, and I didn't find it the second time or the third time. So I searched for it with my Command F and my PDF, couldn't find it. I'm going to tell you what that is in a second. But cover to cover, this page is 214 pages. And they organize it into 7 pillars. Pillar 1, resilient neighborhoods. Pillar 2, economic vitality. Pillar 3, city of the arts. Pillar 4, quality of life. Pillar 5, operational excellence and collaborative governance. And Pillar 6, complete streets for all. And Pillar 7, essential systems. So within these pillars, there's a lot of ideas. Ideas like business district development, mixed use, varying options for housing, goals of making the city more walkable, more affordable, and more sustainable. It relies heavily on county, state, and federal partnerships, developers, and nonprofits. And while full of ideas, feedback, strategy, and plans, the one big piece that's missing is the price. The price is missing from this 214-page report and plan. So how much will this cost taxpayers? We don't know. So here is the current state of city finances, and that's going to kind of paint the picture of what we're working against it here. Revenue projected for the next fiscal year, which is 26, just starting in a couple months, projected to be just over 30 million. Expenses around 40 million. So that's for all fund revenue and expenses, about a $8.1 million budget deficit. They're going to balance the budget by pulling money from the city reserves. And if you dig into the budget, the general revenue fund for 26, it has a $1.1 million deficit, 1.1, 1.2, depending on how you round. Again, plans to make up the difference with city cash reserves. So let's take a step back to the spring. In April, this budget deficit came to light. There was an article that was posted and published by the Webster Kirkwood Times, local newspaper. And they reported that the given reason by city leaders for the budget deficit, the $1.1, $1.2 million deficit, the reason for that was the economic times that we're currently in. And they shifted much of the root cause to personnel costs, specifically the fully staffed police department, which we are now fully staffed. That came at an added cost of $700,000. So a big portion of that deficit. But to clarify what that means exactly, they had open positions within the police department. Those open positions were not accounted for in the budget planning. They were still recruited for. They were still hired. But the city just didn't have a thought, a plan, or the funds to pay for them. And when they were filled, that put our budget in the red. Now, that just put part of the budget in the red because we were already dealing with an $8.1 million deficit. A month later in May, First Alert 4, a local news outlet, reported that a proposed solution to fixing this issue was to raise taxes, the ones that we currently have, but also go a step further and create a new sales tax, specifically an economic development tax and a citywide transportation district tax. Both would raise sales tax by a half cent. But when you look at the current municipal tax rate for Webster Groves, it's 1.5%. So that half cent bumps you up from 1.5 to 2. If you add in county, state, and the current sales tax then for the city, 9.238%. Add in county, state, and municipal, Right now, today, it's 9.238%. So if you look at this picture, and I'm a business guy, I'm going to create an analogy. I'm in the business world. I run, let's say for hypothetical, I run a multi-million-dollar company. $32 million in annual revenue, $40 million in annual expenses, and I want to expand my business despite my deficit. And I want to look at feedback from my customers, only 2% of my customers, and that's going to drive my entire plan for expansion. Now, you're my shareholder, and I can't tell you how much this expansion is going to cost. I can't tell you what it's going to do, how much it's going to raise my revenue, but I hope and I ask very politely for a blank check, and we'll get into the price and the logistics all later down the line. What matters today is that I have your support. That's what this is. This plan has no way of paying for it. And so there's a lot packed into this plan. Can't cover it in a single episode. I think what we'll do is trickle this into other episodes in the future. If you're listening and you're interested in a very specific pillar or a specific topic in this plan, and there is a lot here to talk about, feel free to reach out. I will get into specifics based on what you're looking for. Otherwise, we're just going to kind of get into topics here and there as they come up. But there's a lot in this this plan, and like I mentioned, the 7 pillars. With those 7 pillars, there's over 20 combined goals, over 70 strategic points, and over 300 action items. Again, none of them have a price tag. So giving just a sample today, I'm going to go through the 7 pillars and just call out some of the specifics here and give my thoughts. Again, presenting the facts and allowing you to form your own opinions. The entire plan is going to be linked in the description. The plan is detailed throughout. At the end, though, there is a table where it organizes all of the goals within all those pillars. And those goals, strategic points, and the 300 action items are all organized. It gives you an idea of what they're about, what partners they're looking for. So state partners, county partners, developers, nonprofits, etc. And then lists the importance of priority, low, medium, high, and also if it's a short-term, medium-term, or long-term goal. So we're going to start with pillar 1, resilient neighborhoods. Conducting a housing study. So assess the demand for diverse housing types. A lot of single-family homes is what makes up Webster Groves. There are some mixed use and apartment buildings throughout in different retail sections, but it's quite organized. There are some community neighborhoods that are actually pretty dense, and you get into those streets. They're not streets that are made for parallel parking where you can still have 2 people drive down the road at the same time. And there was actually a individual at the public hearing on Tuesday, who brought up zoning concerns and adding more density into these neighborhoods. And what is that going to look like? And mentioned the street concern. And so assessing demand for diverse housing types, and that's going to include single family detached, like what we have a majority of, duplexes, flats, townhomes, condominiums, small and mid-sized multifamily rentals, and senior housing. So there's a very large aging population here. We do have a couple senior living communities within Webster Groves, but it looks like they are hoping to expand that. And also analyze cost burdens faced by existing renters and homeowners. We all know from an economics perspective, when property costs go up, a lot of the times it does get passed on to a renter. Homeowners as well. I can tell you the biggest concern I have as a homeowner is the taxes. Last episode, I mentioned that my reassessment's gone up over 30% in the past 2 years, which isn't every year because they do it every other. So, since 2023, over 30%. My biggest concern is the tax cost burden, but they're going to evaluate the needs of this, determine demand for workforce housing for police officers, firefighters, teachers, explore opportunities to affordably rehabilitate or redevelop existing homes to meet that demand, And there's a lot of incentives here. So leveraging development incentives, utilize city-owned land, provide upfront funding for infrastructure improvements, and the vehicles for financial tools that I talked about earlier, TIFs, community improvement districts, neighborhood improvement districts, and others to support transformative housing projects that advance the city's, quote, priorities for affordability and housing diversity. Now, the one thing that stuck out to me the most within this pillar is the desire to establish an affordable lending program that'll focus on owner-occupant properties and their undertaking of larger rehab projects like deep energy retrofits, finishing their basements, their attics, putting an addition on. The city doesn't have any money. So I'm curious what this affordable lending program, who's going to fund that? Is it going to be banks, nonprofits, different organizations? Because I think if the city were to kick that off, the city has no money. And so lending out money in today's market, they're going to have to turn around and borrow money at a higher interest rate than they just loaned out to residents. And so I think that that's going to be a massive problem of concern. And if you're a financial partner, a bank, or an investor, or even a nonprofit, and you are looking to partner with the city and create these affordable lending programs, well, what's the incentive for you as the developer, as the bank? Why would you direct your resources to this when there's another opportunity with higher return? This is not a closed ecosystem. And so I think that's something that was, I think I'd be interested to see what that would look like. Economic vitality is pillar 2. Establishing commercial district management program dedicated to promotion and administration of the 3 districts that we have. They want to hire staff. We know how that goes with budgets. And they want to offer financial and design assistance to small businesses for building their facades, sidewalks, signage. We are seeing a massive theme here of getting involved in private business. For example, establishing a formula-based business limitation ordinance to help assure the economic differentiation and maintain unique identities of the 3 districts. So they're going to look to see who's in the district, and if they don't like your business because they think there's too much of it, they're not going to let the decision of saturation or entry be left up to the business owner or the desire for competition. They're just going to make that up for the business owner themselves. So that's going to be interesting. And on top of that, if you do have a business, they're looking to help you expand into new ventures within the district. So if you own a small retail shop, they will want to help you and incentivize you to expand just a couple miles down the road where a lot of your customers might be diluting your own profits. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plans out. City of the Arts is pillar 3. Attract creative businesses. Establish, again, another incentive for targeted businesses. This type will be incentive grants for interior and exterior improvements, streamlined approvals, technical assistance. Another incentive for makers, quote unquote makers, so micro manufacturers of homemade products. And they want to identify which creative businesses are even in the city. So retail, culinary, professional, fabrication. They want to survey those identified businesses to help understand their needs. I would be curious as well if those businesses that they're looking to identify the needs of those who are included in this proposal. Pillar 4, quality of life. A lot of it is around modernization of existing parks, improving safety, accessibility, the different amenities you think about when you have different parks and public green space like walking trails, water features, seating, play areas. They call out splash pads, dog parks, and sports fields as well. And again, getting into how private businesses and developers operate, they want to expand green space access and address gaps in those service areas by requiring new developments to incorporate publicly accessible green spaces to further extend community access. And if creating a publicly accessible green space within a property development or your mixed use retail building that you just built, if that's not quite what you're looking for and you want to go a step further, they will actually be encouraging by creating program incentives for you to donate your own land to help create a public park. And then lastly, collaborate with schools, churches, and nonprofits and other local businesses to transform their own outdoor areas into shared green spaces. Again, that would be through those incentives. Pillar 5, operational excellence. Leveraging regional resources to expand access to amenities. The one thing that's interesting about St. Louis County is you have a lot of these small towns that are very close to each other. You have, shared aid and different things with public service like police and fire. But also you have, a lot of it's walkable, drivable within just a few minutes. And we have a massive public transit system within the county of St. Louis, the city as well, and it spreads across the Mississippi into Illinois. And that's going to be led by State Development or the Metro. And we talked about them on the last episode. They're facing that budget deficit, and they're asking the county council for about $10+ million to fill that gap. This idea of leveraging those resources, one of the examples they gave within the plan is they are hoping that Metro will be able to provide more service options and reliability and expansion within the city to help create a more easily accessible environment. Well, Metro, they're short on funds, as we know, and their service area that they cover is 500 square miles between Missouri and Illinois. So for a city of less than 6 square miles, a population of 24,000, much of which do not live and work within the city, both combined, they'll travel outwards for work, etc. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out as well. Pillar 6, complete streets for all. A lot of it is around developments with MoDOT, Missouri Department of Transportation, including different street changes, intersections, and safety enhancements, and different bike networks, and specifically as well, creating a bicycle parking ordinance and expanding the availability of bicycle parking. I thought that was an interesting point. They want to amend zoning to require short and long-term bicycle parking at places of employment in multi-unit residential buildings, and offer vehicle parking reduction bonuses for new projects that add bike racks. So if you want to take away your parking spaces and add in bike racks, you will get a bonus from the city. And lastly, the last pillar is essential systems. A lot of this is revolving around utilities and utilizing federal and state grants to purchase flood-damaged homes. They want to investigate opportunities to purchase existing land within floodplains and encourage low-impact redevelopment within floodplains that allow the property and the land to maintain functionality as flood storage areas, but also keeping it from being developed into less environmentally friendly manners. Additionally, energy. Think about sustainability. If you are a homeowner or a developer, you're going to have programs that incentivize private single-family solar. Also, incentive-based programs that promote the installation of renewable energy systems. And those incentives may include offering rebates on purchasing equipment, tax incentives, height allowances, setbacks, and expedited permitting. They also, a big thing here is electric vehicles. They are going to encourage the addition of electric vehicle charging stations by, again, offering incentives. So there's a lot in this plan. From an economic standpoint, all the points I went through, I don't know how many times I said incentives or allowance or something like that. There's no price tag. So that's going to be something that will be interesting to play out. When you look at what we know from development opportunity vehicles, And this is not something that is specific to this part of the country. This is widespread across the United States. TIFs hurt investments in non-TIF areas. If you are an investor who develops a building because of a TIF, what happens to the guy who built something just a mile down the road that doesn't have a TIF? How is that going to impact? So those are something that I think need to be carefully considered. And they're very delicate when they look at the income from that. Those are something that are something that needs to be handled very carefully. Allowances need to be paid for by someone. All these incentives need to be paid for by someone, especially the cash rebates. And abatements, they take public return on investment, either fully or partially, off the table. When you look at the city's desire to establish an affordable lending program, as I mentioned, who's establishing this? The city's running a deficit. So that's going to have dramatic impacts to the cash reserves if they're the ones that are facilitating this with their own money. So Tuesday night, as I mentioned, there was a public hearing ahead of the vote to adopt this. There were 2 comments. I live in Webster Groves. I went to the hearing. I was one of the speakers. This is what I said. I'm going to read my statement, and then I'll tell you what happened afterwards. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I have concerns about this plan and what it really means for our community. From the fact that over 300 action items do not have a price tag, to the implications and outcomes, both intended and unintended, that will have on residents and business owners. This plan requires a significant number of variables to land in the city's favor in order to work as designed. External partnerships, funding vehicles, demand, and economic results, to name just a handful. When we leave the ifs to run their course in the free market, it creates an opportunity for the perfect storm of economic disaster and bankruptcy, not just for the city, but for those who call it home. Just this past spring, we learned Webster Groves is facing a general fund budget deficit of $1.2 million for the 2026 fiscal year. This is separate from the all funds budget facing an $8.1 million deficit. A proposed solution was to raise taxes, 2 increased and 2 new. In the short term, the budget is being balanced by spending city reserves. Now we are discussing a comprehensive plan filled with programs, initiatives, and development proposals that would be paid for by writing a blank check, created in part by surveys with just over 2% of resident participation. Here is a small sliver of the reality we are putting this plan up against. Counting on Metro to improve public transit and its reliability when they were just weeks ago asking the county council for $10+ million because they couldn't manage their own budget. A city budget that doesn't take into account open positions, that when filled puts us in the red. And now we have a proposal to hire a business district manager, related staff, and a sustainability director, with pages of other items without a price tag. Developments supported by TIFs, allowances, and abatements. TIFs hurt investments in non-TIF areas. Allowances need to be paid for by someone, and abatements take public return on investment, either partially or fully, off the table. And lastly, the desire to establish an affordable lending program. We have no money. Offering low-rate loans where we are forced to turn around and pay more to borrow money that we just loaned out makes zero economic sense. It is hard to ignore a heavily outweighed equation with the redistribution of wealth, the overwhelming threat and execution of eminent domain, overdependence on private developers, other government entities, the nonprofit sector, and the increased involvement with how private businesses run and operate. So my question to the council and the planning and development department is, how much will it cost, and what are your plans to pay for it? In doing so, will you commit to moving our budget back into the black without raising taxes? So those were my remarks in Tuesday's public hearing. There was a short discussion that the council had afterwards. Not all of the council members spoke, but their discussion didn't answer any of the questions. I think, as someone that was sitting in the room, it more so addressed and helped to alleviate some of the concerns from the public. Some of the things that were said were, quote, "It's just a guide," quote, "It doesn't set anything into action." And there was this big emphasis that these are just ideas that will set the groundwork for the next 20 years. And that all of the items that require it, such as zoning, funding, new ordinances, those are going to have to go through the necessary legislative processes when the time comes. So I've said it before, including on last week's episode in my intro, local government is vital. Public input is vital. This case in particular, this story that I just went through, all factual. Tuesday night, it was noted that Webster Groves had the highest, if not one of the highest, rates of public input that the consultants that worked on this plan have ever seen. The highest, or one of the highest, rates of public input that consultants have ever seen. Things like this are happening all around the country. We're focusing on this show on St. Louis in particular, but that doesn't mean things like this aren't happening around the country. It speaks to the culture. Things of importance happen late in the evening, quietly, right in front of us. This plans like this, they require a legislative process to be put into action. But adopting them sets the culture. It brings attention to priorities. It shows the cards. And so while this adoption of this plan might not have set anything in stone, when those things do come up, when we do vote on ordinance changes, funding proposals, bonds, tax increases, different regulations, when those come up for a vote on the city council or in a referendum on the ballot, that's the opportunity to show up. And so just because there's a public hearing, just because there's big things like this, it's not over. It's not over. And so be the voice. Get involved. Call out the facts. Wherever you are in your part of the country, again, this is not specific to St. Louis. This stuff could be happening in your community, in your town. Call out the facts. Don't be afraid of standing up for your future. Be the change you want to see. Fight for your future. Fight for what's right. Fight for the facts. So those are the facts. This is the Ben Broghammer Show. Thank you for listening. And be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you use to listen and keep up with the show. Until next time.